big update that came in, some USFDA pain for Cipla, which we are tracking this morning. We were in touch with Equirus, who got an access to the Form 483 issued to Cipla's Goa unit. Vivek has more details on this. Let's take it across to him.
It's a very important day as far as pharma is concerned, and today one of the stocks in focus on the back of a Form 483 of fresh regulatory concerns is Cipla. Now we are talking about Cipla's Goa facility, and the Form 483 details came into the public domain today. Fortunately, we at ET Now are joined by Mr. Kedar Upadhye, the group CFO of the company. Thank you so much, Mr. Kedar Upadhye, for joining us. So first up, while you had already intimated the exchanges about the details of the Form 483 and the number of observations, today the details and the intricacies of the Form 483 are now in the public domain. The stock also saw a solid reaction, a solid negative reaction, although it's recovered quite a little bit. So what is your initial assessment of the Form 483? Are there any data integrity issues, anything to be worried about?
Vivek, thank you for your question and thank you for this interaction. See, this audit was done at our Goa site, which has about 10 units across various dosage forms. If you read the content of the Form 483, the redacted version which got out today from the agency, there is no data integrity observations. There is no repeat observation in it. We are in the process to draft a very robust response, giving our corrective and preventive actions to each of these observations. And the total exposure of single product sales from this site is less than 2.5% of the company's total overall revenues. We have an active de-risking program in place. As we start building, the responses to this Form 483, we will approach it on, multi-pronged, as a multi-pronged approach. And within the prescribed timelines, we will be submitting a draft response to the agency.
Understood, sir. So, now what the street is worrying is, we spoke to a couple of pharma analysts as well. A lot of them are worried that given the nature of the observations and given the size of the Form 483 itself, there are worries that this particular site could be classified as an OAI and maybe eventually even get a warning letter. Now, in this particular context, number one, have you already started drafting a response? Have you sent it to the USFDA? And are you worried that, in case escalation does come through, are you worried that there could be a supply disruption, especially from the Goa facility?
Vivek, we are not worried at this stage. Like what I clarified, we are in the process to draft a very robust response, to each of the observation in the Form 483. I appreciate your point on the number of pages, but what is more important is the nature of the observation. And like what I told you, that there is no data integrity related observations, there is no repeat observations. The observations largely pertain to facilities, equipment and infrastructure and some procedures. And I believe we'll be able to submit a very robust response to the satisfaction of the agency. Coming back to disruption, as I said, at this stage, this doesn't impact our existing business. In terms of the future pipeline, the near-term pipeline from this site is actually quite limited. And I mentioned that we have a very active de-risking program to have multiple sites for one product. And the single source product from this site is less than 2.5% of the company's overall revenue.
Right, sir. So, would it be accurate to say that this particular facility would contribute close to 25 to 30% of your total revenues? Correct me if I'm wrong. And the other thing, sir, that we need to look at is what is the kind of ANDAs or fresh product filings that you have from this particular site? Because the likelihood, in case there is an escalation, is that would get disrupted. So, would you be able to give us some sort of indication as to both of these particular issues are concerned?
Yeah. So I think to respond to your question in terms of the revenues, I just clarified that the single source products from this site contribute to less than 2.5% of company's overall revenue. Okay?
Right.
That is one.
Right.
In terms of the exposure of today's revenue. Secondly, the near-term pipeline for the next 1 year from this site is very limited.
Right.
Okay. So the exposure is quite lower from this site.
So, another thing that I want to ask you is, typically, when you have such a Form 483 that does come in, given that the company now you would have to go ahead and reply to the USFDA, you've already indicated that you already have a robust reply in the making. So typically, what would be the timeline? By when would you be replying to the USFDA? When would you expect the USFDA to respond to your reply? And also given the fact that during this particular time there could be an overhang that remains as to what would be the indication or what would be the facilities supply to the overall scheme of things.
Yeah, well, I think the rhythm of audits in the pharmaceutical plant is pretty well established, Vivek.
Right.
Audits either by the regulatory agencies or by the customers are not new to us. We have a very well-established team which deals with the audits, inspections, and subsequent, responses and resolution of any queries. So I'm not concerned about our ability to run the existing operations along with responding to this query. I don't have any concern on that front.
So my final question from you, especially post the ranitidine as well also the valsartan issue, what you're actually seeing is that most of the Indian pharma companies are seeing a renewed regulatory focus, especially from the USFDA in terms of the facility and in terms of quality audits, even in terms of some of the surprise inspections that are happening across facilities. So what is it that you at Cipla are doing? Are you also a little worried about this renewed pressure that you're seeing, and would you say in certain cases it's slightly uncalled for?
I would not characterize the activity of the regulatory agencies in any manner. I think we operate in multiple countries throughout the world, and we have to abide by the regulations and the compliance programs of those countries. Internally, we take utmost care to establish a very robust compliance, training, awareness creation program for the compliances of all the countries in which we operate.
Right.
And we continue to do so because we take compliance as given. Without compliance there is no business. So I do not want to characterize the activity or the recent observations in any manner. At Cipla, we are committed to compliance, and within manufacturing, quality and overall operations teams, compliance is a culture.
Sir, thank you so much for joining us here. Thank you so much, Mr. Kedar, for joining us. It was such an important day and there is so much of overhang and so much of lack of clarity. Thank you so much for clarifying most of the issues regarding the Goa unit, sir. Thank you again.
Thank you, Vivek.